This is like a pretty monumental day, and I want to catch everybody up. I feel like everyone is hearing bits and pieces of what's going on, and they're obviously angry. And we obviously want more information on the Epstein files. But I want to like put it in a kind of a timeline or in an order so that you can understand how insane what's going on really is. But first, I want to tell you what happened today. So today, Pam Bondi, Attorney General, had a hearing with the House and Congress. It was 5 hours long, where they basically grilled her on the piss poor management of the Epstein files. Weird redactions, not talking to victims, the way they've been delaying, obfuscating, hiding, the way they've been redacting powerful people, unredacting victims' names. All of this stuff came up, and Pam Bondi was grilled from basically every direction. And I think her response under pressure was horrendous. It was horrendous. I'll play you some clips, some of which you may have seen. But really, you do not need context to understand this is an insane way to respond.
Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it.
Like, these are questions about, like, why are you unredacting victims' names? Why are you covering up the names of powerful men involved? And she's like, you're attacking It's crazy. Then she tries to pivot to, like, pointing to Donald Trump's economy.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking.
Just to be clear, this is a hearing about the Epstein files. It isn't like an open hearing about anything and they just happen to bring that up. Everyone here is for the Epstein files. The victims are sitting behind her. Everyone is here to talk about one thing, and she is deflecting to the fucking Dow. This is the Attorney General of the United States being asked direct questions about why we still haven't received the full files. I mean, it is comical in its absurdity. The idea that is a line of attack that her and her team had written down as a way to get out of this. Deflect to the Dow is crazy.
Talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
The committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. Ms. Bondi, the Attorney General can respond.
Thank you. The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has done it in 1 year.
Crazy. This is fucking crazy. It was a true fucking clown show. By the way, it was revealed, Reuters got a picture of it, but her binders here and the binders of her associates in the background were not filled with like detailed facts and statements on the case so that she could knowledgeably answer the questions. They had tabs of all of the people who'd be asking questions and like burns to them. It was like insults tailored to them based on what, like zingers. It's like a fucking burn book. This guy even pointed it out.
Because I'm curious, and I'd like to see you flip to the Jared Moskowitz section of the binder. I'm interested to see what staff provided on the oppo on me, and because we're in the Olympics, I'm gonna give it a grade. I just want to see how good it is. So give me your best one.
So people were pointing it out, but I mean, you could see like screenshots of like little dunks. You claim to be a social justice warrior, but you're a member of, you're against dark money. It's like, none of it is like real substantive attorney general level understanding of this important judicial issue, which is the release of the Epstein files that you have been blocking for going on a full, actually longer, but let's say under this time, full calendar year now. Trump, by the way, at the same time, during this massive hearing, is tweeting about great jobs numbers far greater than expected and how the United States of America should be paying much less on its bonds. I mean, there's so much wrong with this. I don't even want to go into it because it's not an economics video, but the United States of America only sets interest rates on short-term bonds, not the long terms that we borrow at. And certainly if we were to cut interest rates now, it wouldn't save us $1 trillion per year. Okay, all of this is completely made up. I know it's like a shocker that President Donald J. Trump might lie, but all of this is mumbo jumbo nonsense. Golden age of America is upon us, yeah. Additionally, we had other questions that really cut to the heart of the matter.
Former Prince Andrew, Donald Trump attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein. I want
you to understand, this question that you're about to hear is a very simple yes or no question, but her answer to it defines the full 5 hours, which is she is asked a lot of direct yes or no questions and see how she responds.
I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous, and that they are trying to deflect.
Who's trying to deflect?
All the great things Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked that those files.
I'm reclaiming my time. I got your answer. You said there's no evidence.
Trump asked
Chairman, please stop the clock. Stop the clock.
The legislation. This is
Time
belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center, because I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is all on videotape. You said there's no evidence of a crime. I'm showing you, here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center. He drove Donald Trump around in a limo. He overheard what Donald Trump said to Jeffrey on his cell phone. He was so angry, he was going to stop the limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown off, and officers at the scene said that could not have been suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness. You need to interview this witness immediately. Epstein should rot in hell, so should the men.
Anyway, it's honestly sickening, and the entire 5 hours just made it so apparent. It's already, we knew this, but it's so apparent that this is like a not even well coordinated, a ramshackle, desperate cover-up attempt for a lot of powerful people, but specifically one of them is Donald Trump. And the reason it's all happening is because of his power. The other people don't have a power over her specifically, but he has power over her. And it ended, again, the 5 hours were mostly similar to this. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but it ended with all of the victims being asked.
To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand.
She refused to look at them, refused to apologize, refused to indicate in any way that the goal of her DOJ is to get actual justice, to interview victims, to learn anything. It's very, very, very fucking obvious what the goal of her DOJ is. It's to protect a few powerful people, quite specifically, I think Donald Trump, but among others. I think one of the victims had the best to say after this whole fucking clown show. I think that's what she called it. She said, I felt embarrassed that we even stood up and she couldn't even turn around and apologize to us. This whole thing is a clown show, I think is what she said. The whole room is laughing at her and this has become a circus act. That is what I feel. It was a fucking clown show. So look, I'm gonna be interviewing Ro Khanna here in about, I think it's 10, 15 minutes, who is one of, I think, again, I've said this multiple times, I think the heroes. There are, I think, 3 people I wanna spotlight as absolute heroes in this multi-year long, but especially recently, attempt to try and get actual justice and transparency around the Epstein files. One of them is Ro Khanna, we're gonna talk to in a second. The other is Thomas Massie, and the other is journalist Julie K. Brown. So I want to do a quick timeline to catch you up, because I know you've probably heard a ton of things over the past year and more about Epstein. I want to give you like a quick beat by beat so you understand what's going on as we go into this. General high level idea, okay? Jeffrey Epstein, wealthy, powerful, well-connected predator. Connected with a lot of powerful people. In 2005, a 14-year-old girl's family reports that she was molested at his mansion. Multiple underage girls all tell police that they were hired to give him sexual massages. When he's charged on that, on multiple counts of unlawful sex with a minor in 2006, Barry Krishner, state attorney, steps in and gives him special treatment. And his deal, also with Alex Acosta, is pled down to 1 count of prostitution, soliciting prostitution. So this is the original story of Jeffrey Epstein in 2008. They have tons of evidence immediately that he's a child sex predator, but he is pled down. The headline was financier starts sentence in prostitution case. Doesn't even put his name in the headline. That's what it was, okay? After this, when he gets out of this short jail sentence where he can actually leave during the day, it's like a very cushy, after this is when all of these extra emails you start seeing between him and like Howard Lutnick, him and Elon Musk, him and all the people you've seen in the emails releases. All these are after this happens. But in 2018, 10 years after this, after Epstein's been living basically free and wealthy and connected, despite this being the truth of it, Julie K. Brown, a reporter from the Miami Herald, starts to pick up the story again. She does the work that nobody else will. It's been 10 years. And she starts tracking this guy and re-talking to victims. Now, this is an incredibly important piece of work, and you can find in the emails that Jeffrey Epstein was worried about her. She did heroic work, and she is the reason he ended up, like, all of this is a saga today, because he basically got away with it. This is actually good journalism. So she did that, and that's what led to him getting arrested again, the new amount of pressure, and to him dying in jail. I won't say suicide because I don't think it was a suicide, but that's the idea. She brought down Jeffrey Epstein, and then he's put in jail, and something happens and he dies. But it's because of her efforts. Now, since then, there has been the idea that, hey, outside of him and Ghislaine Maxwell, who were punished because of her work, there had to be more people involved. The idea that it was just him, this guy was acting alone and had nobody connected to him, is insane. And yet, since then, it's been an attempt to keep it all quiet, to just not investigate it further, not go any further with it. That's where these two people come in. This is Thomas Massie of Kentucky and Ro Khanna of California. These two people are heroes. I literally think that some of the work they're doing is some of the most important in America. They are bipartisan. They are from different parties, Republican, Democrat. They don't even vote aligned on most things, but they have a friendship and they have worked together to get this out. It is incredible. I'm happy to be talking to Ro Khanna today. I would love to talk to Thomas Massie if he's available. I think what they're doing is really important. So I want to go through a more detailed timeline of the past year so you can kind of catch up. Right after Trump gets elected and gives Pam Bondi her job, she says in February, again, he starts in February, she goes, "The Epstein list is sitting on my desk right now."
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
Then they invite a bunch of like conservative influencers to the White House where they get these binders that say the Epstein Files Phase 1, and they pose for the camera, and they all make Instagram posts about it that they have all deleted. I went back and tried to find them. They all deleted them because there was nothing in these binders. These binders were a total lie. Then, by July of that year, suddenly the Epstein client list does not exist. Pam Bondi comes out and walks back the theory. There was no client list. At the same time, Ghislaine Maxwell is interviewed privately by Todd Blanche, of Deputy Attorney General of Pam Bondi, where she says, yeah, Trump did nothing wrong and is moved to a minimum security prison with nicer conditions. A pretty obvious quid pro quo. Then Kash Patel comes out and says no credible information that anyone else is involved in the Epstein crimes.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files.
In the case file.
So it's at this point, around the time of Kash Patel and this and the client list there, basically this July, August, September area, that Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna create the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which is an attempt to get these files actually released. Basically to force, using judicial methods, the government and the DOJ to actually release them. They are the only reason we have been getting these millions of files out, even though we haven't gotten them all. We would have zero, because they were attempting at this point in the process to shut the door. They were trying to say it's done, it's over, there's nothing else. The only reason we ended up getting these millions more files is because they created the Transparency Act, they made it public, they put pressure on other people to vote for it, and they ended up getting an overwhelming vote. Once they got that overwhelming vote, that went to Trump and he had to sign it, because if it, it was like voted 427-1, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. If he didn't sign it then, it would be obvious. So he had to sign it. But then after he signed it and it became legally the law of the land that we had to release it, they started to delay. They started to delay, obfuscate. So after that, we got that first wave. If you guys remember it, the first wave was like 33,000 documents, and they were heavily redacted, almost all black pages. So since then, Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna have been like December 17th, they said, hey, DOJ, if you do not meet the deadline in the Transparency Act that we all signed, there could be repercussions, there could be lawsuits, you could get in serious trouble. You are breaking the law. That's when we got the first wave of the files on December 19th. Then, because it was only the first wave and they're still delaying, on January 8th, just a month ago, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie asked for a special master independent monitor to oversee compliance, basically saying deadlines keep getting missed, everything's over-redacted, we're not getting the required reporting. That's when, under that pressure, we got this 3 million new files that we just got. And these new files have very strange redactions. Sometimes the victims are not redacted and the powerful men are redacted, which is weird. There was 6 men that were redacted in these files that should not have been, that Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna then read out openly on the House floor. They read their names. It was, I don't have all the names in front of me, but it was like Les Wexner, Sultan Ahmed bin Salayem. It was powerful people, okay? So these people get released. Now, they are putting additional and that brings us up to today, final pressure to get all of the files released, including 3 million additional files that have not been released, and with full, complete unredactions of everyone but victims. That's where we're at today. So like, this is a timeline that is years in the making, but it's specifically last year of like month after month after month of deadlines being missed, and they are the ones keeping the pressure going. So I'm excited to talk to him in about 5 minutes, but I wanted to catch you up on what's going on. Him and Thomas Massie are important, and that's why what they're doing is like noble. Again, they are receiving an insane amount of pressure from the DOJ to stop. What I want to ask you is mostly about what happened today with the Pam Bondi hearing. Can I get your overall take on what you saw in that hearing in the 5 hours?
I was sad. One of the survivors texted me. She said, I'm really glad I wasn't there and I've lost all hope. I think sometimes people view this as political theater. Pam Bondi obviously came in and was hurling insults at members of Congress. Members of Congress were trying to embarrass Pam Bondi. But for Thomas Massie and this has actually been about the survivors. We've gotten to know a number of them. They've cried in our offices. They've faced extraordinary trauma. We're less interested in scoring points on Pam Bondi or Donald Trump, more interested in seeing the men who raped these people as girls, raped them when they were 14, 15, brought to justice. One survivor talked about being raped at 17 in Paris, and the person is in the files, but no longer in France, no longer in the United States, escaping jurisdiction. She just wants them to be investigated. And what I saw was an embarrassment that no one was talking about actually bringing these men to justice, exposing them, investigating them, prosecuting them. They were so focused on scoring political points. And we have to really grapple as a country is, do we have the moral character to hold the Epstein class accountable?
So you mentioned the word hope, and I can understand that person's feeling that there is no hope. I hear that from a lot of people in my audience and people in my life, that this feels despondent and feels like this has been such a long time that justice has not been served. However, I do want to say the actions that you and Thomas Massie have taken with the Epstein Files Transparency Act seems like to me the only time we've had real forward motion on getting this released. And I do not think we would have the millions of files that we've gotten so far, though it's not enough, if not for that. So it does give me some hope. I'm wondering if, on your opinion, you see the dam breaking a bit. Do you see any, like, this feels like there's some sort of progress. It feels like a floundering attempt, what Pam Bondi is doing, not a one of solidarity or strength.
I think you're absolutely right. I appreciate your saying that, because Massie and I didn't think we'd get nearly this far. We didn't expect we'd be able to get half the files released. And I didn't know how many people were exposed. I mean, I could not have guessed that so many people, of the most powerful people in real estate, finance, tech, Hollywood, were in these files. And what are you doing going and visiting an island knowing that someone has been convicted of pedophilia? I mean, if you did that, you should be investigated. You should be asked questions. I'm not saying everyone who has emailed saying I'm going to visit Epstein on his island committed rape, but think about it. You know this guy has been convicted for pedophilia. You know he has young girls on this island, and you're going there? And give me a break. Some people are saying I'm going there to fundraise. I've raised a lot of money. I'm in politics. You don't go to an island of a pedophile to raise money. You know, you go to some New York restaurant or a cafe in Silicon Valley to have that meeting. So
I mean, that's, yeah.
This has just exposed a class of people who thought they were above the law, had incredibly bad judgment at best, and in some cases were part of raping or watching young girls being raped. They need to be brought to justice. And so I am hopeful in that we have defied the odds to get this far. Everyone now has woken up to it. I mean, this is something that many Americans are talking about. It's not like many things in politics, which I do, which no one knows about. This is something people who are watching the Super Bowl are talking about. And I think they're not going to rest until we have justice. Certainly, it's become a personal cause for me and Thomas Massie. I mean, I'm not going to let this go.
Two things on that. One is, what kind of pressure are you facing to stop what you're doing, not only now, but in the past when you began doing it? I wonder if you could help my audience understand of what you've had to fight against to get this far.
Well, both Massie and I have made a lot of enemies. It's not the traditional way of doing politics. Usually in politics, when you get elected, you keep your head down, you keep making friends. Politics is addition, not subtraction. You don't offend people, and you just bide your time, and eventually you rise to as high as you can go. That's how you become speaker. That's how you become president. That's how you become vice president.
Right.
And why have people not taken these people on? It's not just Trump. Why is there been successive administrations where this stuff has been hidden? Because some of the people who are part of this Epstein class are some of the most rich people, powerful people in our country. They're donors to politicians. They're donors to the party. They have extraordinary influence. And so you've got Massie right now being challenged in a primary where billionaires are putting money against him in a super PAC. You have billionaires talking about running someone against me in my primary. And so the way that they try to discourage you is to say, we're going to come after you. And now they won't say, oh, we're coming after Massie because of the Epstein files, or they'll pick some other issue. But that's what's upsetting them, that we're exposing this corrupt class. And, the other way they discredit you is, oh, these are crackpots. These are conspiracy theorists. These guys are just doing this out of a false sense of populism. Don't pay attention. They're not mainstream. Why aren't they talking about the real issues? Why aren't they talking about the cost
of Dow? Did you see that today from Pam Bondi? Why are they talking about the Dow being 50,000?
Why are you talking about the Dow? As if morality doesn't matter. As if there's anything more sacred than protecting young girls in a civilized society. As if a society that allows for the rape of young girls and the abuse of young girls, as if it has any stature, even if you have a GDP that is enormous.
It's absurd,
What does it matter if you don't have basic human decency and human values?
So that brings me, you mentioned some people who said, oh, I was there for fundraising. But there's an even worse, I think, class of people who openly denied it until the emails came out, until the emails that you forced the release of. People like Howard Lutnick, who have spent years saying that they avoided the man, they never had any contact with him, and now it has been revealed have had business dealings, have had dinners with him. He's one of many, but I feel like that is an area where there's obvious immediate resignations and justice that need to be happening.
No, thank you for saying that. He needs to be fired. Look, the person who should be firing him is Donald Trump. Donald Trump, it came out that he made a call in 2006 to the police saying that he's really concerned about stuff that's going on with Epstein, and Epstein is hanging out with young girls, and he needs to be prosecuted. Now, there are other things that Donald Trump has said that don't make him paint him in as positive a light.
Sure,
but Trump said that in 2006. And then you have your own Commerce Secretary who, after you know that this Epstein is a pedophile, you know that because you called the police, it came out, and he's convicted. And after that, you've got someone who is admitting that he lied about meeting Epstein, that he's going to Epstein's island, taking his family to Epstein's island, and has alleged business dealings with Epstein, a convicted pedophile. And you want this person to be America's face of business to the entire world? It's not a political thing. This person should have no place in American government.
So, I mean, it begs the obvious question. And I think I think the direction you guys are going, which is framing this in a bipartisan way of victims first, protecting them, is a strong one. And I believe in it. But it does seem that the obvious answer to a lot of these links in the chain that don't make sense are that Donald Trump is the power behind this stuff not making forward progress. Pam Bondi is clearly performing to an audience of one in these ceremonies. And so, Raskin was out there saying that he saw the unredacted files, searched Donald Trump's name, and saw over 1 million hits, many of which have not been released. So I wonder what you think about that angle of it, which is that there's a clear link between what Donald Trump is doing and what he may be saying.
It's a cover up. And the biggest thing is Donald Trump's FBI redacted the files. They scrubbed the files in March, months before the Massey and I passed the Epstein Transparency Act. And what did they do? They scrubbed the files where the survivors told the FBI agents the men who raped them or the men who trafficked them. They're all in the FBI files. They're all redacted. So the quote unquote unredacted files that members of Congress saw still had all the scrubbed files from the FBI. They just uploaded that on Justice. Now, Justice did more redactions, and we're seeing the unredactions from what Justice did. But even Justice is admitting that they still have all the redactions of the FBI. That is a total cover up because the worst stuff is in those FBI files. That's where the names are. That's where the survivors talked about who raped them.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand because you understand this better than me. Are you saying that the unredacted files that you and some other Congress people were able to see are not the full unredacted files? There are still more that only the FBI has?
Yes. So here's what happened, and this is, I think, why they're so clever. In March, the FBI redacted all of the most sensitive files. They blacked it out. And what are these files? If you're a survivor, you get interviewed by an FBI agent. You have your lawyer there. The FBI agent says, who raped you? Who else was at these parties where you were paraded naked? And they take notes. And it's called a 302 form. And those are all at the FBI. That is the most important information. And all of that, Donald Trump basically told the FBI in March, it was publicly reported, go through these files, redact everything. Those are all redacted. Then Maya and Massey's law passes, the Epstein Transparency Act. And they get documents. They get some of Epstein's emails. They get pictures from Epstein's computer. They also get a bunch of documents from the grand jury testimony and from the FBI. The stuff they got from the FBI had already been scrubbed. It was already redacted. And they just uploaded that on the files. And the stuff, that they got from the grand jury, already redacted. Now, in addition to those redactions, they did additional redactions on the emails they were getting from Epstein, some of the things we saw. And some of those redactions were legitimate. They were protecting survivors. And some of those redactions were not legitimate. But that was only 30%, 70% if it had already been redacted. So when I went to the Justice Department, and I said, okay, let me see this file. And I saw the redacted version. Then I said, okay, show me the original. And it was still redacted. I said, what's going on here? They said, sir, we got them redacted from the FBI. We just uploaded them. And this is the original sin in March where they were scrubbed. And the law that we passed requires them to be unscrubbed, but they haven't done that. And someone who really knew this should have gone into the details with Pam Bondi. I don't think she would have answered. She would probably just insulted
No, she would.
but they're playing a game.
Okay, this is what I really wanted to understand. So can you help me understand the difference between what is being carried out and what the law that you and Thomas Massey passed demands? Because I'm struggling to find out, like, is what they're doing at this point illegal? Like, is it against? Okay.
It is illegal. The law says that you have to release all the FBI files, all the justice files, but you can protect the survivors. They have not just protected survivors, they protected the predators. They protected the identities of people in those files. Now, their claim is, well, these people weren't charged. They could have reputational damage. But the law says reputational damage doesn't matter. You got to get all these out. That's what the law says. So they're violating the law. And they're hoping there'll be no consequences for violating the law.
Back to hope a little bit, because it feels like this is a story that, despite their best efforts, will not go away. I mean, your efforts have been a huge part of keeping it in the public consciousness. But despite that, I remember, July of last year, or maybe right after, it was Kash Patel out there saying he acted alone. There's nothing else. We're going to close the book on this. And so there's been like multiple attempts. I think Donald Trump has said time to turn the page on this. There's attempts to stop talking about this, and it keeps coming back. Do you feel like, especially with this recent surge of energy and anger, that we're going to get the rest of these files? And I mean the original unredacted ones.
Yes. Now, do I believe it may take a new president? Maybe, but we're going to fight for everything until then. This is now not going away. And the reason it's not going away is because they released enough to show that it wasn't a hoax. They released enough to show that there were a lot of rich and powerful people involved. They released enough to make Americans mad that there's an elite group of people who think they're above the law who are going to this island. So now the American people are not going to just say, let's move on. In fact, every time Donald Trump says move on, it gets a bigger and bigger story. And, he has too much of an understanding of politics and public opinion to know that you could just move on. He gets that this is a vulnerability for him. And it's a vulnerability because his whole campaign was drain the swamp. His whole campaign was it's a corrupt system. A bunch of these politicians, they all take money from donors. They're all corrupt. They don't play by the rules. I'm going to tear it down. I'm going to expose it. And now it's not so much what Donald Trump's issue is in being in the files. It's that he's not exposing everyone. Like people know he's not a saint, but they thought he would get to the truth and cut and rip apart a corrupt system. And that's why this is such a big issue. And I believe that we are going to prevail. We're going to prevail, though it's going to be a fight for people like you who are independent media and streamers, people who are survivors, politicians who are actually committed to getting to the truth, and who are not going to care, like, okay, so what? There's a primary challenge. I mean, Massey said, so if he loses, he loses. I mean, I think he'll win, but, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene gave up her seat in Congress. It's going to require people with political courage. Yesterday, I went on the House floor and I named 6 names of people in the files who shouldn't have been redacted. And people said, Ro, you're going to upset them. What if you get sued? What if you have an issue? But people are tired of it. They're tired of just letters and speeches and tweets. They want action. And that's the thing that binds Massey and my friendship. We're people who act. We're not just, let's give some fancy speech. Okay, let's expose these 6 people. Let's get these files. And I think once you get people like that this thing is going to fall. These cards are going to fall.
I incredibly respect that. And I will have to say, when you look at the timeline of what's been happening with the Epstein files, it takes someone like you or Julie Brown or doing an action for anything to happen. Until then, it goes years with nothing. And then suddenly actions happen quickly. Once the Transparency Files Act was passed, I mean, immediately you get releases of files that they were never going to come out. So I do respect it. I want to ask you, as for my audience and for myself, is there ways that you think the regular person can get involved or help make progress on it? Is it just as regards to the midterms? Like, how do we help you in this journey of getting more of these files released and bring people to justice?
Well, I think getting more Americans to care about it. I mean, for example, I gave a speech that's already viral yesterday. People can tag with their members of Congress, share it, make sure say, we want more names. We got 6. We want all the dozens of other people who are there. Who are the other names? And tag Pam Bondi, tag Kash Patel. It can just be unredact the files, release the FBI files that are redacted. And the more people have that sentiment, that the more pressure they get, they'll react. How do I know they'll react? Because they have reacted to public pressure. They first released something that was total BS on December 19th. Then they released these 3 million files because of public pressure. Then they redacted names when Massey and I said, you made illegal redactions. They unredacted the name. When I went to the floor and named the names, suddenly everyone is, even in MAGA's base, is talking about it. So the more you have a huge base of people, the more they're active in amplifying what Massey and I are saying and doing and speaking on the floor or at the hearing when Massey asked Bondi and saying, look, we're behind these 2 guys. We may be Republicans, but we're behind what Khanna and Massey are doing. We may be Democrats, we're behind what Khanna and Massey are doing. Release the files, get them unredacted. That would make a difference, a real difference.
Okay. I want to give you the floor a little bit, and I want to say, if there's anything you'd want people who are aware and angry of this story but don't know a lot of the details to know. Is there something that you wish that was more commonly known by the average American, I guess?
One is just how extensive the people were who were caught up with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, if I wrote a movie script and I had all these powerful Hollywood people and powerful tech people and prime ministers and heads of state and financiers all being connected to a pedophile,
it would seem cartoonish. It would seem unbelievable.
It wouldn't pass. Like, no one would make the movie. They'd say this is implausible. And so the first thing is to know is, like, the most powerful people in our elite society all were part of this club, and they knew that this guy was a convicted pedophile, and they were still showing up to his island. They were still taking his money. They were still doing business with him because they all wanted to care more about being part of this club than they did about these girls who they saw as disposable. Some of them did the worst things. Some of them engaged in the rape of young girls. Some of them engaged in the trafficking of women. Some of them were at parties where young girls were being paraded naked and didn't say anything. But many of them didn't do that, but just turned a blind eye to what was going on because it was so important for them to be part of this elite club. It was so important for them to be seen with power and money. And until there is accountability for these elites, until there is an accountability for everyone who was going to the island when Epstein was a known pedophile, I don't think we restore trust in our democracy. Yes, it's about justice for survivors, but it's also like, okay, if these rich and powerful people don't have to play by the rules, then is there really democratic?
Do the rules mean anything? It doesn't. Yeah. Why am I following them if they're skirting them so openly? And that's what the files do seem to reveal. Representative Khanna, I know you're on a clock, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for walking us through this.
Thank you for covering this. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for covering it in a very substantive way with the timeline and the facts. You know, it's people like you who are helping get us justice, because the mainstream media hasn't covered this for a long time, and now they're covering it. But it's people like you, it's your listeners and viewers who are really driving this. And
Thank you very much. I want to say I sincerely respect the way you and Thomas Massie are doing politics. To disagree and to vote opposite on so many things, but to work together on something as important as this is like one of the few good political stories you can have in the recent years in America. It's impressive, and it's inspirational. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay, thanks, guys. We wouldn't have a ton of time, but I thought that was a good interview. He got to say what he wanted to say. Yeah, I mean, I get emotional about this kind of stuff. It's crazy, bro. It's when you think about it, like on a zoomed out scale, it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up, and I like to see a good person do well. So I hope they do well.